Welcome back, everybody, to the Libertas Freedom Podcast. Once again, I'm your host, founder of Libertas International, Tyler Schwab. And thank you for the support we've been getting. Thank you for the attention this podcast is getting. It's so humbling to know you guys come back every week and continue to offer your support to us in this way. And so thank you very much for all of your support, and please continue to visit libertasfreedom.org. Make those monthly donations, become monthly donors. You guys have no idea how big that is for us. Check out our Venmo, buy a flight for repatriation, go follow us on our social media channels. All this is huge, and it gets us the help that we need to continue to support survivors all throughout Latin America. I came, I've been doing some reflecting. It's in the evening now where I'm located, and I'm actually working on a book about my journey with Libertas International. And so many of my history of just personal development, personal growth comes from the Dominican Republic. And while we have more survivors elsewhere that we're supporting, places like Colombia, Guatemala, maybe even Venezuela, Dominican Republic will always hold such a special place in my heart. And I just reflected on the people that I met there all those years ago and the violence that they were exposed to after I was gone and while I was there. One thing, 2023 has been an interesting year as far as people's awareness of human trafficking, and what it looks like, what it doesn't look like, the epidemic of sexual abuse that's rampant in our communities. And I think a moment for me that was so heartbreaking, so transformational, so humbling, so disturbing was just how close to home it can hit. I've sat down with a lot of parents throughout the world, lots of parents whose children have gone through something just horrific, and their feedback is always like, I didn't think this could happen to my kids, to me. I was always so careful, so watchful, and to be exploited, to be trafficked, you don't need to be taken to a different country. You can be exploited in the confines of your own home, and in the confines of your own community. And it really hits home when it happens to someone that you care about or that's under your watch of care. And so I want to get just fairly vulnerable with you for a bit. So we have some survivors at Libertas International that I actually met while I was on a mission in the Dominican Republic. I lived down there for 2 years, and I met a lot of amazing families who had small kids. And, at the time, we got to know these people, got to know their lives. But after I was gone, I still continued to stay in touch with them. That was something I was always very intentional about, is just trying to stay in touch as much as I could. And in the years that followed, it came to my attention just how much violence, sexual violence, some of these kids went through. Trafficking, exploitation, it always, you never want it to hit close to home. And it can happen to our sisters, our mothers, our aunts, our brothers. I've had some heartbreaking conversations with people that have had intimate abuse happen to someone that they care about. And for me, where it hit closest to home is after I came back from Dominican Republic, I went to college, started Libertas International, began working in the anti-human trafficking field. When it hit closest to home for me is when survivors that I knew as a missionary, that I knew living in Dominican Republic, reached out for help because of something that had happened to them. There were 4 instances that I'll tell you today. One instance was a little girl. I was present during her baptism, the first week of her baptism. I was able to attend, and me and my family were able to watch her get baptized at 8 years old. During her adolescent years, her father, to pay some bills, took a loan out with the wrong people. And he wasn't able to pay these people back. And so when these people came knocking and he couldn't pay, there were some pretty severe consequences for him personally. And he was murdered. And so a lot of the financial responsibilities fell upon this little girl. We'll call her Chrissy. Chrissy, she was just 12 when it happened. Her mother suffered a mental breakdown, and a couple different things happened. She sought emotional and economic comfort in men that are less than, I even struggle calling them men, just people that are not high quality people, men that are of very low quality. And so Chrissy and her little sister, who was 8, suffered because of that added vulnerability. Chrissy got a job. Chrissy got a job at a telephone store selling burner phones to people to make burner calls to help make ends meet for the family. And I noticed some changes in her emotionally. She began to be suicidal. She was distant, and I didn't recognize what was happening. I've had a lot of education in trauma. I have degrees. I have certificates. But when it happened to someone that I considered family, I wasn't able to recognize it. She told me later on that this store clerk man would let her take a little extra out of the safe box. He would help pay for her phone plan so that she could stay connected to Facebook and have datos, basically like datos in English would be like how much memory you have on your phone, how much you're able to surf the net per month without getting charged extra. He would give her extra in exchange for allowing him to do things to her. And because of the economic situation that she was in, she agreed. This is exploitation. It's a guy taking advantage of a little girl. She was only 15 at the time, taking advantage of her economic situation, a position of power, to exploit her in engaging in these sexual acts that she was not consenting to, and she was also a minor. While the family was out working, Chrissy's little sister, Shay, we'll call her Shay, she was only 8 years old, and she's quiet by nature. She's not much of a talker. Shay is one of the smartest girls I've ever met. Brilliant, loves to race, extremely quick. We'll call her the Flash because she's so fast. She would stay in the house alone with mom's boyfriend, and mom's boyfriend would touch her and then threaten to kill her if she told anybody about it. These were two girls that I cared deeply for, that I met while I lived down in the Dominican Republic. And when they told me later just how much they suffered, it broke my heart. Chrissy told me a few years back, but Shay, now 16, told me last month of what was happening to her. It's a good lesson to all of us where survivors deserve to be believed whenever they choose to report their abuse. Shay has not been abused, according to her, for over 6 years. And it took her 6 years to tell someone about what had happened to her. Both those survivors are receiving care from Libertas International, vocational training, education, studies, empowerment, both emotionally and economically, to help them recover from what's happened to them. There was a 19-year-old girl that I met here who got into a very abusive relationship, and she fled with her 2 daughters, and he threatened to kill all 3 if she ran again. Libertas, we're doing our best to keep those girls educated in school while also keeping the family safe and hidden. And there's a survivor that I met in my first couple days when I moved to the Dominican Republic. She was 6 years old, very bubbly, had a little popsicle in her mouth. So she took her a few days to start talking. And I didn't speak any Spanish at the time, so I wasn't really able to communicate with her. But we ended up reconnecting on Facebook a number of years later, and she told me what she was doing, and she's valedictorian in her high school. Her ultimate dream is to study politics, so she can one day work for the UN, and she can make a difference for women in her community. She came up to, up north in the United States a few months back. I mean, it was this year, 2023. Went hiking, wanted to see the States, got her visa, wanted to explore. And just a great, great kid. And I noticed a change in her too. I noticed her going through some ups and downs emotionally. And when she booked her ticket here to the States, she was like, I want to talk about some stuff. And I had an idea of what she might want to talk about, but wasn't sure the details on what exactly that was. So we sit down, we go get Dominican food. Dominican food here in, where were we at? We did some hiking up in the Uintas. If you guys have ever been to Salt Lake City area, there's a mountain range called the Uinta Range, which has some just amazing, phenomenal hiking. So I took her hiking up there, and it was awesome. But she sat down and she told me about her dad and how from the time that she was 10 till she was 15 and her mom divorced her dad would force his way into her room when mom wasn't around, when mom was teaching school, and he would force her to give him oral sex, and told her, like I mentioned in another podcast in Project Carrillo, that this is how little girls love their dad. And it happened for 5 years, almost every day for 5 years. And in tears in this restaurant, she told me what was happening and that she just needed to tell someone because nobody knew. And so I listened, told her how much I supported her, how much I believed her, and how much I cared for her, and how I was happy that she would share something of that significance with me. And I asked her what she wanted to do. And she wants to heal from what's happened. So that's one of the things that we put into place, a plan of when she went back home. She kind of had her own pathway of healing where she wanted to see a psychiatrist. She wanted to work on her mental health. But she also wanted to go to the gym, as we've talked about in other podcasts. The gym, being able to reclaim control of your body, which is what we did for her. And also the aspect of justice. She wants to go after her dad in the right time because her little sister is 6 years old. Not that far off of when he began to abuse this girl. And so we're working with her to connect her to the proper law enforcement agencies to provide a trauma-informed setting to where when she discloses, justice can be served, and she can also stay safe. But the decision that she's going through, and I think this is something to note in this podcast, is reporting that you've been abused is not as easy as just going to the police and telling them that you were abused. I mean, in a perfect world, yeah, that would be great, but she walked. Because that's what I wanted her to do, honestly, because I was so mad. I just want this guy in handcuffs because he hurt someone that I deeply care about. And she walked me through it in a way that I learned that it's not that easy. Especially when you're reporting someone who's very close to you, even family. That she told me, I'm about to destroy my family dynamic. I'm about to ruin the lives of so many people. I'm about to share this intimate detail, and I don't know if grandma will believe me. I don't know if my own mother will believe me. The community that I come from, when stuff like this happens, you're just kind of told to shut up about it because you don't want to mess up the family dynamic, because family is the most important thing. She said, I'm about to alter the family dynamic that I have for the foreseeable future, and I don't know when I can go home again. And I learned something new that day, where that is a real consequence of reporting. I'm not saying that doesn't mean she shouldn't do it, but having her explain to me in this way what she's thought through of when she reports, what the likely consequences are for her and her family. And so that's where we're at. We're working with her. She goes along, and she has decided to report this guy because of the access that he has to her little sister. And I share these stories because it happened. The violence against women and children happened to people that I cared about, that I was close to. They became family to me when I was living in the Dominican Republic. People that loved on me, that took me in, that fed me, that cried with me, that walked with me in this trying time where I was trying to learn a different culture and a different language. They took me in. And all these years later, I came home from the Dominican Republic in 2011, and it's 2023. And people that I've known for 13 years are just now disclosing their abuse. And I thank God that Libertas International is here to support them. That there's people that give, so when these survivors come forward, whether it's the day after they're assaulted or 13 years later, that there's a soft place for them to land. And it's because of people like you. It's because of people like you that download our podcast, that listen to what I have to say on this podcast, that visit our website, that give monthly. You monthly donors are the best. That when a survivor comes forward and says, my dad did this to me for 5 years, and I'm just now talking about it, I need help, that we can respond and say yes. Our mission and mindset here at Libertas International is to never turn away a survivor. When a survivor reaches out for us for help, and it's in our scope to be able to help them, or at least point them in the right direction, we always want to say yes. And it's because of you monthly donors that we're able to do that. And so once again, I just want to say thank you. 3 things to end this podcast. First off, just let me say thank you again. Thank you for supporting us. Thank you for donating. You guys are the absolute best. And please keep it coming. Please keep that support coming. We desperately need that support. 2 is pray for all of these individuals I just mentioned, specifically the last one, as it's about to get really rough for her as she fights for justice on her behalf. Please pray for her, and that she can be brave, and that we can be brave. And we're all scared with this case, but being brave is not being absent of fear. It's doing the right thing despite the fear. And the third thing is to visit that website, become a monthly donor, share this podcast with somebody, publish on your social media, give us a follow, give us a comment. All these things are things that greatly help us out when it comes to what we want to accomplish around the world. And so, signing off again, this is Tyler Schwab, founder of Libertas International. Thank you so much for joining us once again. We are so grateful for your continued listening, your continued support, and we will see you next time on the Libertas International Podcast. Have a great night.